Hey everyone, Combo here, back with another Empires and Puzzles video, and today I'm going to talk about who I believe to be the top 10 fire heroes in the game right now. I have done videos for our top 10 dark heroes, top 10 holy, top 10 ice, and top 10 nature. This is the last of this series, so you guys have all seemed to really enjoy these videos. So if you have any ideas on other top 10 or top 5 types of videos that you would like to see me do, drop a comment down below. I do have some ideas over the next several weeks of videos that I am going to be doing for other types of top 10 types of lists, but I'd love to hear ideas from you all for what you would like to see. Appreciate the feedback and the support. Also, I do need to give a disclaimer. There are two brand new heroes that just came out over the last couple days. Charmion from the Contest of Elements portal, who is part of the Slime family, and then also Isidore, which is part of the Wilderness Summon portal that just came out as well. I am not including either of those heroes in this top 10 list. They're too new. I haven't had a chance to play against them or test them out or anything like that. I haven't even heard anything about them from any of my chats either. So I didn't feel it was right putting them on just because they have the best stats in the game or because their specials looked good on paper. We don't know what they actually look like when you play against them or use them. I didn't feel right putting them into this top 10. Obviously, they're great heroes. And if I were to do this video next week, then one or both of them would likely be included in this video. And real quick, before we get into our top 10 fire heroes, if you do enjoy this video or find it helpful, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you can see my future videos. All right, we are going to jump right into number 10 here. I have Armenta from the Woodland Fawn family. She is fast mana speed, barbarian class, and her ether power is special boost. Love fast speed heroes. Special boost is a good ether power for her, considering that she is an attack all hitter. I'm not a huge fan of the barbarian class, but it does help with attackers, obviously. She has two passives. The first is resist insanity. This character has innate resistance against insanity, so she will never be able to get insanity on her, whether you are in insanity war or if it is a hero trying to inflict insanity on her. Her second passive is resist attack reduction. This character has innate resistance against status ailments, stacks, and wither effects that affect attack. And for her special, the Forceful Advance. First, she is going to deal 260% damage to all enemies, and then she's going to add a stack at a max of 10. All damage all enemies receive is increased by plus 7%, so that can get to a max of 70% if her special does happen to go off 10 times in the course of a battle. Definitely very useful considering the fact that she's fast mana speed, and that stack is going to help in those longer battles, of course, as your enemies receive increased damage, keeps on stacking up. And then all allies are going to gain 10% mana after 2 turns or immediately if the effect is removed before the duration ends. So that's definitely cool for Equalizer War, or just 2 turns is really not that long. So all of your allies are going to get plus 10% mana after 2 turns when that special is fired. So definitely a cool hero. I thought about adding Hammerclang to this list, and when I compared Hammerclang and Armenta, Armenta is just better because of the fact that the increased damage can get up to 70%. So you'd have to get her special to go off 4 times to equal what Hammerclang does at 30% extra damage. So very similar heroes, but Armenta also has the resist insanity, which in my opinion is a big factor, especially considering we have Insanity War now in the game, and we've got the new Shadows of the Deep portal coming into the game in a couple weeks, and those heroes that inflict insanity are going to become a lot more common because of that Shadows of the Deep portal coming into the game. So that's why I like Armenta at number 10. At number 9, I've got Pepperflame. So Pepperflame was considered to be one of the most overpowered heroes in the game, and then she did get nerfed, but she still is a very, very good hero. She is part of the Goblin family, of course, is fast mana speed, her class is Monk, and her ether power is attack up. I've mentioned it in videos before, but fast speed heroes that are either Monk, Druid, or Sorcerer are my favorite in the game because you can still use a legendary troop that gives plus 11% mana, and those three classes give plus 4% mana if you choose the mana node in their talent path. And that combination of the 11 and 4% is going to give you 15% mana increase, which is what you need to get from 8 tiles down to 7 tiles on offense. Unfortunately, the other 7 classes cannot get to 15% mana unless if they have a costume bonus that helps them get there, or if they have a bard that's going to give them extra 5%, or some other type of mana increase generation. For Pepper Flame's passive, she has effects on special skill. She has a 40% chance to perform the following action when this character casts their special skill. She's going to deal 90% damage to all enemies, and all enemies are going to get minus 25% accuracy for 3 turns. Those happen in combination with each other, so if one of them happens, they both happen. And I know it says 40%, but I feel like it happens almost every single time her special goes off. And for her special skill, the Chords of Havoc, she's first going to deal 450% damage to the target and minor damage to nearby enemies. She has a growth effect where the caster and nearby allies get plus 250 attack. And then the target and nearby enemies get minus 30% defense for 3 turns. If the effect is removed before the duration ends, the target with the effect suffers 577 damage. I have Pepper Flame on my roster. I have her double limit broken. This is actually my version of her that I'm showing you right now. And I can tell you that that damage increases when you double limit break them and choose the attack nodes in her talent path. The damage changes to 856 after the duration ends for that defensive down. And obviously that is huge in Equalizer War because it's going to happen that much more frequently and that much quicker if you're able to time it. So Pepper Flame is definitely a very fun hero for wars, for events also, because of that growth effect for her and her nearby allies. So you can stack up the attack growth for those first couple rounds so that you can make the boss battles that much quicker when you're in those challenge events and tower events. She's also really good for Titans for that same reason, and for Mythic Titans because she's gonna increase the attack growth of her and her nearby allies. Definitely a fun hero, and that is why I have her at number 9. At number 8, I've got Malum from the Ninja family. He has the charge mana speed, of course, as all ninjas do, so he's got 3 different charges, which I'll show you in a moment. He is part of the rogue class, and his ether power is Rage. So Rage is going to start off with plus 15% attack, and each time that he gets hit over the first 6 turns, he is going to gain plus 1% attack on top of that 15% for the first 6 turns. For his passive, he has the decreased minion health. All of the new ninjas have this. Enemy minions inherit 50% less health. Definitely very useful against those minion summoners that have like 4,000 health, and those minions get like 1,500 to 2,000 health. So very useful against that because you're already decreasing that minion health right off the bat. And then for their special skill, the Lacerating Leap. For the first mana charge, which is gonna charge in I think 5 tiles depending on what your mana increase is from troops, he is going to reduce the max health of target and nearby enemies by 500. Effect is stronger against targets with boosted health. He is then going to deal 250% damage to the target and nearby enemies. For his second charge, he's gonna reduce the max health of the target and nearby enemies by 650. Effect is stronger against targets with boosted health. And then he's gonna deal 375% damage to the target and nearby enemies. The attack bypasses defensive buffs. This includes counterattack. And for his third mana charge, he's going to reduce the max health of target and nearby enemies by 800. Effect is stronger against targets with boosted health. And then he's going to deal 500% damage to the target and nearby enemies. The attack bypasses defensive buffs, including counterattacks. And also, the target and nearby enemies resist healing and receive 450 damage per each resisted healing for 6 turns. If you can get to that third mana charge, I feel like it's almost lights out between the max health reduction, dealing 500% damage to the target and nearby enemies, and then them not being able to heal for 6 turns and getting additional damage on top of that. That's pretty insane if you ask me. I do love the fact that he attacks after the max health reduction. I think he might be one of the first heroes in the game that does this. And look at that attack stat, 1,888 he can get up to. That is crazy. Definitely a cool hero. I do not have him. Wish I did. And something worth noting, is where it says effect is stronger against targets with boosted health, it's going to remove an extra amount that it would have already reduced the max health. So for that first charge, where it's going to reduce it by 500, it's going to take away an additional 500. For that second charge, it's going to take an additional 650 away. And then for the third charge, it's going to take an additional 800 health away. Definitely a cool hero. Would love to have him. Coming in at number 7, I have Costume Hathor. She is part of the Moon family, which is part of Season 5. She is fast mana speed, and her ether power is defense up. Personally, I think this version of Hathor is better. A lot of people do use the Sorcerer version, which I'll go over the differences when we get to the special, but I like the Cleric class better. I think that that is a better class than the Sorcerer class, especially when you are on defense. So Hathor has 3 passives once you get her costume. The passives will work for the costume and the regular version. So her first passive is effect on special skill. 50% chance to perform the following actions when this character casts their special skill. She's going to boost health of all allies by 10%. Boosted health can exceed max health. All allies gain a small amount of mana. Her second passive, guaranteed effect on special skill. When this character casts their special skill, any of their passive skills that grant extra effects on cast are guaranteed to activate. So that first passive where it says 50% chance to happen, that's going to happen automatically. This came out when she got her costume, so you do need her costume in order for that 100% guarantee of that passive to work. And then her third passive is resist mana generation stopping. This character has innate resistance against status ailments that affect stop mana generation. And for her special skill, Motherly Love. All allies regenerate 640 boosted health over 4 turns. Boosted health can exceed max health, and all allies are immune to new status ailments for 4 turns. The original version of Hathor, which is Sorcerer class, is literally the same exact special and passives, except that she instantly will give boosted health of 480 rather than the 640 boosted health over time. So personally, I feel like the Cleric version is better for defense, and the Sorcerer version would be better on offense, in my opinion. And the reason behind that is that Clerics have a chance to resist negative mana effects and effects that prevent the use of special skills. So if you're going against somebody like Von Rothberg, Clerics have a good chance to resist that Von Rothberg silence effect from the dancing. I have Von Rothberg, and I know that when I go against Clerics, I have to take that into consideration when I am deciding who I'm going to be hitting him with, or if I am even going to bring him to that battle at all. So that is why I like this Cleric version of her better. But again, on offense, I don't know if the Cleric class is as useful as the Sorcerer, because it all depends on who you're going up against. So if you're going up against a team that does not have any resist mana or silencers, then you can just bring the Sorcerer version and it's not going to make a difference. Either way, a great hero and very annoying to go up against because of a couple reasons. One, that instant mana that she gives to everybody. I feel like every time that happens, it's just enough to get the flank and the wing to the right of her to fire their special off, and it's extremely annoying when it's Lemonwood and you weren't preparing for it. That has happened to me a bunch of times. Actually, I'm pretty sure it just happened in the last war. And then all allies being immune to new status elements for 4 turns. Very annoying to go up against as well. All right, moving on to number 6, I've got costumed Dorvengance. He is part of the Nightmares of Atlantis family. His mana speed is Changing Tides. His class is Sorcerer, and his ether power is Special Boost. Dorvengance has 2 passives, first being effects on special skill. He has a 50% chance to perform the following actions when this character casts their special skill, deals 80% damage to all enemies, and the caster gets plus 19% mana generation for 2 turns. His second passive is Resist Insanity. All of the new costume Untold Tales 1 heroes have this. This character has innate resistance against insanity. Same thing as the Woodland Fawns. This works for both Insanity War and any heroes that inflict insanity on their enemies. For his special skill, the Sunken Abyss, his first charge is going to deal 360% damage to the target and nearby enemies. The target and nearby enemies receive corrosive burn for 4 turns. This deals 211 burn damage and lowers the target's defense by minus 10% each turn. The first charge is equivalent to a fast mana speed usually. It's usually 8 tiles. It might go down to 7 tiles depending on what your mana generation is from your troops. And then for the second charge, it's going to be equivalent almost to an average speed. It's a little bit more than average speed. So again, it's going to depend on where your troops are at. And then Dorvengance being the sorcerer class for his costume definitely helps also, because that's going to give you 4% mana at that mana node for the sorcerer class. And for that second charge, he's going to deal 485% damage to the target and nearby enemies. The target and nearby enemies receive corrosive burn for 4 turns. This deals 331 burn damage and lowers the target's defense by minus 18% each turn. Dorvengance is an extremely hard hitter. He's got the second charge at almost 500% to the target and nearby enemies, and he's got that effects on special skill, so he has that 50% chance to add 80% damage to all enemies. That is a lot of damage he's going to be dealing. If you are not aware of how the first and second charges work for the Changing Tides mana speed, you have to get the first charge first and use it, and then you can get the second charge. It's not like the ninjas or the sticks or the magic family where you can bypass the first charge or second charge and skip right to the third charge. You have to use the first charge on the Changing Tides heroes, and then you can use the second charge. So definitely a great hero. I tried to pull him in the last Untold Tales 1 event when he was the featured costume. Was not able to pull him. Hopefully, I can pull him next week when he comes back as a featured hero, though. Moving on to number 5, a hero that I do have is CostumeGal, also part of the Nightmares of Atlantis family, also Changing Tides mana speed. He is Wizard class, and his ether power is attack up. He has the same exact 2 passives as Dorvengance. Again, that's going to give a 50% chance to perform the following actions when this character casts their special skill, deals 80% damage to all enemies, and the caster gets plus 19% mana generation for 2 turns. And then he has the Resist Insanity passive as well. For his special, the Sunken Magma Cube, his first charge is going to deal 275% damage to 3 random enemies. Hit enemies receive an underwater magma cube. The owner of the Magma Cube gets minus 34% defense. Magma Cube explodes in 3 turns, dealing 300 damage to their owner. If the Magma Cube is cleansed, the owner gets minus 34% mana generation for 3 turns. For his second charge, he's going to deal 375% damage to 5 random enemies. Hit enemies receive Underwater Magma Cube. Owner of the Magma Cube gets minus 44% defense. Magma Cube explodes in 4 turns, doing 450 damage to their owner. If the Magma Cube is cleansed, the owner gets minus 54% mana generation for 4 turns. So I had a big debate between Gestal and Dorvengance. Who was better? Who was going to be number 5? Who was going to be number 6? And it just came down to Gestal being better, in my opinion, because of the fact that he deals 375% damage to 5 random enemies. So they don't have to be next to each other. Whereas if you have killed the tank with Dorvengance, then you're only getting his special on 2 enemies, which is still a lot of damage, but Gestalt's damage is going to go to 5 random enemies, and some of that could hit 1 enemy twice. He deals a lot of damage with that second charge. He is definitely a finisher when it comes to getting rid of enemies. It is a little unfortunate that it's a random, but he still makes a huge impact in my opinion. And he is extremely useful for Titans and Mythic Titans because all 5 of those Magma Cubes are going to hit that Titan. And all of those reasons are why I have him at number 5. Coming in at number 4, I have Dima from the Garrison Guard family. He is average mana speed, class is Barbarian, ether power is attack up, and of course, being part of the Garrison Guard family, he's going to start off with one of those smaller mega minions, which is going to have 20% health and 100% attack. If you have multiple Garrison Guard family members, they can get 25% health for having 2 family members, and then they will have 30% health on that mega minion if you have 3 or more of the Garrison Guard family members. So that is definitely great, and you will see a lot of people in the top 100 global raids having multiples of these Garrison Guard family members because of the extra damage they do at the beginning of the battle. It is just a game changer. And for Dima's passives, he has 2. His first is Resist Mana Reduction. This character has innate resistance against mana reduction. And then his second passive is Guard Rally. Every 4 turns, removes all wither effects attacks from all allies. And for his special skill, Spotting Trouble, he is going to first deal 400% damage to the target and nearby enemies. The target and nearby enemies get minus 25% defense for 4 turns. The effect duration resets if the enemy is healed. He is then going to summon a Sword Guard Mega Minion with 35% health and 300% attack inherited from the caster. The target hit by the Sword Guard Mega Minion receives 450 bleed damage over 3 turns. This effect spreads on nearby enemies. So definitely a very strong hitter, and that Mega Minion is going to hit for a lot of damage considering he can get up to 1714 attack. That is crazy. Moving on to number 3, I know that it did surprise me when I was doing my research for top 10 fire heroes, but at number 3, I've got Salimata. She is part of the Bard family, fast mana speed. Her class is Cleric, and her ether power is attack up. So definitely a couple good things already going for her, being the Cleric class and being fast mana speed and being a Bard. So Bards give all solo family members on your team plus 5% mana. So even though she's part of the Cleric class, she's still going to be able to fire in 7 tiles with a legendary troop, so long as you do not have any other Bards on your team. And Bards have arguably the best passives in the game. The Quick Tempo Ballad, where all ballads cast by enemies only last for 1 turn, and then the Quick Tempo Dance, all dances cast by enemies only last for 1 turn. So those are extremely useful for when you're going up against heroes like Sludges or Von Rothbert or any of the other heroes that have those dancing or ballad effects. And for her special skill, the Magical Balin. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but she is first going to dispel buffs from the target and nearby enemies. She's then going to give 375% damage to the target and nearby enemies. The target and nearby enemies receive Minion Wound for 3 turns. What is Minion Wound, you ask? Well, glad you asked. Minion Wound is the target's minion's health is reduced by 50% and Mega Minion's health is reduced by 25% each turn. The reduction is applied to the owned minions and to any received minions while the effect is active. Reduction only affects minions' current health. So even if they have multiple minions, that effect is still going to happen on multiple minions. So that is definitely pretty cool and a new dynamic into the game. And then she's also going to make it so that the target and nearby enemies get minus 80% decrease for any healing received for 3 turns. The fact that she is a priority dispeller and then she deals damage to those 3 enemies after she dispels, that is a huge thing. Combine that with the fact that she is a Bard class, that she has the Quick Tempo Ballad and Quick Tempo Dance. She is a really good hero, and that is why I have her at number 3. Coming in at number 2, I've got Regan, or Regan. I think it's Regan, not positive, but she is part of the Nidavellir realm. She is fast mana speed, her class is rogue, and her ether power is counterattack. So not a huge fan of counterattack ether powered heroes because it's only 60% of the damage, but being a rogue class is definitely annoying to go up against. I feel like the dodge from that happens almost all the time on special skills. She does have 2 passives. The first is Empowered Resist Burn. This character has resistance against burn and gains 450 boosted health and 5% mana when they resist. Her second passive is the Molten Core. This core activates each time this character casts their special skill. All enemies receive Corrosive Burn for 3 turns. With a fully charged core, the Corrosive Burn deals 287 burn damage and lowers the target's defense by minus 10% each turn, deals extra damage against heroes with minions or mega minions, and the burn damage is scaled by the amount of charge in the core. All charges wiped when the core is activated. So this works very similarly to the Construct core heroes. I've talked about this in other videos, but think about Nautica or Frond or Blossom or any of those other Construct core heroes that when they get hit, their core increases in the percentage, and the higher the percentage is, the more burn damage that those enemies are going to get. Definitely very annoying to go up against, and it kind of sneaks up on you too. I feel like when I've gone up against Regan, I've gotten around 400 to 450 burn damage each turn because of the fact that when she's double limit broken, that burn damage is going to increase on top of the normal 287. Also, fun fact, if you were to use Bernadette against Regan, when they use that special that Bernadette forces them to use outside of their normal special, their passive passive still goes off, so you're still going to get that burn damage from Regan or any of those other Untold Tales 2 heroes that give that burn damage. So definitely worth noting on that. And then for her special skill, the Master Plan, she is first going to dispel buffs from the target and nearby enemies, attacks the target and nearby enemies with a Firestorm strike up to 1900 damage, deals 40% more damage if the target is of the nature element. This special skill never misses its targets, and the target and nearby enemies are immune to new status effect buffs for 3 turns. Regan might be one of the hardest hitters in the game when you take into consideration that Firestorm strike. If she hits one nature enemy, the damage is going to be 40% more, plus all of that corrosive burn damage over the 3 turns. That's an additional like 1,000 damage that she's going to be giving to all enemies. So that is a lot of damage, and that is why I have her at number 2. And coming in at number 1, to no surprise of anybody, I've got Bernadette, aka Beard a Bitch, aka Bernie. She has so many nicknames because she is that much of a terror in this game. She is part of the bear family. She is very slow mana speed. Her class is Druid, and her ether power is boosted regen. Being a Druid class is definitely a little annoying. Those little Thorn minions come up all the time. If she has a matching legendary troop, then she's going to have 4,000 or more health. And with the superior master class talents, those Thorn minions are going to have 25% health. So those are going to have 1,000 health. Definitely even more annoying to kill her once those Thorn minions stack up. And if you are not familiar with Bernadette, we're going to take a look at her special in a moment. But first, her passive is health recovery on buff received. This character recovers 5% health when they receive a buff or positive stack. And something worth noting is that the bear family is going to make it so that all received defense status ailments will be replaced by a 40, 60, 70% defensive buff for 3 turns. So depending on how many bear family members you have, more than likely she's going to be the only one on the defense. But either way, you cannot give her any defense down status ailments, or she's going to get a 40% defensive buff for 3 turns, which is automatically going to give her this 5% health from this health recovery on buff received, because she's getting a defense up status buff instead of the defense down that you're trying to give her. So make sure you do not bring any defensive down heroes against Bernadette, or she's just going to make it more difficult for you to kill her with that defensive up and the 5% health that she's going to give every time you try to give her defensive down. And for her special skill, Cursed Painting, she is first going to dispel buffs from all enemies, is going to deal 250% damage to all enemies. All enemies turn into a Cursed Painting for 5 turns. This effect cannot be cleansed. Cursed Paintings have 70% attack, 70% defense, and the following special skill, Break Free, which is very fast mana speed, deals 250% damage to the target. When the target casts that special skill, they will have a 60% chance of removing the Cursed Painting ailment from the caster. But she has been a terror since she came into the game, especially in Rush War. But honestly, even outside of Rush War, she is still very annoying to go up against because most people have her at the tank position, so her special is going to get activated that much faster. You need to make sure that you either silence her, that you use somebody like Lord Loki and copy your special against her, that you have Oni Wakamaru, who has a undispellable taunt, so only he gets affected by it, or that you have Costume Guardian Gazelle and you have the dancing effect, so no status ailments can be cast upon you. Something to that effect. Sludges obviously is going to work with the dancing also. Any of those dancing effects usually don't work on the caster, so keep that in mind because the caster will turn into one of those paintings. Costume Lord Loki, in my opinion, is the best counter to Bernadette, and he's a natural attacker against her because of the fact that he is a blue ice hero, and ice is strong against fire, obviously. Definitely a pain to go up against, but those are the heroes I believe to be the current top 10 fire heroes in the game right now. I feel like a lot of the 3 through 8 could have been interchangeable or even swapped out of the top 10 for some of the other heroes that I was considering. Some of the other ones I was considering were Scoria, Toon Aslar or the Glass Adlar, Ruad, Vanya. Definitely some great heroes that got left off this top 10 list, but let me know who you think got snubbed from my list or who you think should not be on this top 10. Also, I will pin a comment comment down below with links to the other 4 videos that I've done over the last month or so with the top 10 dark heroes, top 10 holy, top 10 ice, and top 10 nature. If you haven't checked out those videos, definitely go do so. But that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy it or found it helpful. And if you did, hit that like button, make sure you're subbed to my channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.